I see many familiar faces and I see some, so who's never been here before?
Can't hear you.
All right, so there are a couple of people that have never been here before, and I definitely recognize a lot of faces. I recognize some faces from other places too. So, welcome to the museum. My name is Chris Goslin. I'm the president of the museum here. Our goal is to tell the story of Michigan and its contribution to the defense of this nation over the last 100 years or so. Hopefully, if you have not yet, you will take an opportunity to walk through the museum and see the collection and let us know what you think. As I stated earlier, for those of you that just came in a little bit later, all of our lectures are by donation. So if you have not, please feed the little gray box out there. A snowball bill just came and it's not very happy. So we're always, don't make me go stand on the corner and actually sell pencils. It's very intimidating. Apparently a lot of love for Yankee Air Museum here. This museum sort of kind of sprung out of the roots of Yankee. I mean, some of us were volunteers there, and then we survived the Roof Argus era and kind of went off, and here we are. But we definitely love, we definitely have our roots there. We've got some good friends at Yankee who actually came to join us today. And Joel? What number are you from Yankee here?
65.
It's still
You
alive.
got me on
And I think,
that.
for this museum, it's number 6 or
5.
5 or 5. So he's a low digit member of both of them. I mean, he's celebrity. Right?
Yeah, that's good enough.
So this is part of our fall-winter lecture series. We are well on the way with our now the winter series. For those of you that are interested, there are schedules out on the table outside the door with some flyers. Next weekend, right here, same place, same station, we're going to be having a presentation on the World War I Hello Girls, which were the American ladies that went over to France and set up telephone exchanges. It's a kind of a reenactor-based lecture by Lois. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, Springfield or Teal. And she was pretty cool. So I hope everybody can make it out to that one. And March 10th will be the next one after that. Will be Beverly, who's also in the audience, will be giving a presentation on the Base Hospital 36, World War I. And then March 31st, I know this partner up here is probably very excited about our Rose of the River film. We'll be showing the Life and Times of Rosie the Riveter, which was a film that was made in 1980 on Life and Times of Rosie the Riveter. It's kind of cool. And then we'll be wrapping up our winter lecture series on April 14th with another World War I themed presentation by a local author named Mark Rudd, who wrote a book about his grandfather's service in World War I. And so he'll be talking about the book and signing copies, and yeah, it should be kind of cool. I saw him speak down in the Grass Lake Museum, and it's a pretty neat little thing. And we also have our summer event schedule. Our tentative summer event schedule is posted out there. We have 3 reenactments this year that we're going to be supporting out of the Chesterfield Historic Village. We're doing a timeline, a World War II reenactment, and this year, for the first time, we're doing a Vietnam-themed event. So we'll see how it goes for the first year event. So if you can, come on by, check these things out, and I guess I'll end the commercial there, and turn it over. Yankee Air Museum, right here in line. Thank you very much.
All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate it. My name is Levine. I'm a member of the docent at the Yankee Air Museum shown here. And if you look at the quote at the top of the banner, it says, "We love aviation and history. This is a place to be." This is from one of our restoration guys, a fellow named Chris Curran. I think Chris was absolutely spot on in his description of the museum. I'm going to speak to a little bit today about our story, past, present, and future of the museum. It's described in the book, Yankee Air Museum. Yeah, right. This is a totally non-subtle pitch for book sales. Please be aware that any and all profits and royalties go to the museum. None of it, which is fine, because it's an absolute labor of love to write this book. I learned so much, and met so many terrific people. just fabulous. So, before I begin, I'd like to thank Chris Cosley and the Historical Society here for inviting me, my friends, the Rosies, Steve Hopper from the museum for coming out to support the beach shelter. So thank you all very much. Many thanks to over many people, my family, my son Danny, who happens to be here in the front row, my wife Carol, my daughter Jessie, all very helpful and supportive. Senior leadership at the museum, Dennis Norton, Kevin Walsh, Ray Hunter, and Randy Houghton were behind this project 100%. Very generous with their time and knowledge. 4 people went over and above to help me out. Julie Osborne's our curatorial director, and I called her and emailed her so many times I thought she was just going to block my emails altogether. But to her credit, she did not. A ton of information. Alan Dwight made available thousands of high-quality pictures. Only a few made it in the book. It was very limited, very rigid limits from the publisher. But they have a pictorial history of the museum, which is fabulous. And a guy named Harry Churchler was one of the original founders. Sent me some notes he took from the very early days of founding the museum. It was fabulous and really showed there was a story to be told. Many other people, and I'm sure I left people out inadvertently, not by any malice on my part. The organizations made tremendous contributions. And there's some photo credits for the pictures we're going to see tonight, this afternoon's discussion. Please be aware, the book barely scratches the surface of the story. Like I said, the publisher has rigid limits on the word count, so I just not enough space to tell the entire story of the museum. A number of key people in the museum are either deceased or in ill health, so their perspectives are available. And apologies just in general to people that I should have mentioned in tonight's presentation or in the book, and they just didn't have space to or not aware of. So that's on me. I will say too, I try to obviously strive for 100% accuracy. Memories and written accounts of events often vary, so I try to sift through it and come up with the best story I could that seemed right. Any errors are my responsibility. Today's presentation mixes info from the book plus updates since I sent the text to the publisher. So I knew about Yankee for a long time. I used to take my kids here in the 90s. There's some great artifacts and aircraft, all in a unique setting, which was an old World War II hangar, which you can see pictured here. In 2004, I was living in South Canada at the time, and I saw a cloud of black smoke in Willow Run's direction from the back porch of my house. I thought a plane crashed at the airport. Put on the news, saw what was happening at the museum, and the fire just absolutely destroyed it. I began volunteering at the museum in 2015, so I'm relatively late to the party. When I found out the museum story is fascinating, and especially if there's one thing I really learned is just how many people are dedicated with so many hours, so much money, and so much effort over years and years and years in the museum. It's just unbelievable. So how did it all start? 1941 and 1942, in what had been farmland, Ford Motor Company built the Willow Run Bomber Plant from scratch. We produced 8,600 B-24 Liberator bombers, and here's one coming out of the rollout hangar. B-24s were a key part of the Allied arsenal in World War II. The plant's on the west side of Willow Run Airport, and the current museum that we presently occupy is on the east side. After the war, this was part of the building where Kaiser Frazer took it over, built about 700,000 cars until they went bust and had financial problems in the mid-50s. Mid-50s, General Motors took it over. They built 82 million transmissions there, which has to be some sort of all-time world record for transmissions under a single roof. GM, of course, had substantial financial problems. They disposed of the property in 2010 and was shut down. And the plant's been a huge presence in southeast Michigan for years, but there was no vision about how to commemorate all the history and the work of tens of thousands of people doing stuff really pivotal to the war effort and then pivotal to the U.S. economy after the fact. That then set the stage for Yankee's 2 founding members, Dennis Norton and the late Gary Bassett, who were area people with an interest in aviation and history. Dennis's father had worked at the Willow Run Bomber Plant for a short time before joining the Navy in World War II. His mom also worked at the plant. So in the summer of 1981, they got to thinking about how to honor all this history. Maybe they get a Willow Run B-24 and set it up on display. And then thinking really out of the box, maybe they could get the thing flying and fly it around the area. They were both pilots, so it's at least plausible. And then maybe you could come up with a museum to talk about the Willow Run story. And this is an aerial shot to the west side of the park there. Where that B-24 came out was right up there. So in the summer of 1981, Dennis and Gary went to the Selfridge Air Show, which was held at the Selfridge Air Base. The Selfridge people were very encouraging, lots of good information for our guys. Pictured on the left is Bob Stone, who's the Selfridge Museum founder. Pictured on the right is a man named Don Odell, who was the public relations director at the time for the museum. He was a former Vietnam War POW. And at the time, this is pre-Facebook, pre-internet, pre-all of that, there must have been 1,000,001 phone calls to get things set up. Reach out to people and plan for the future. Our first official meeting was on September 24th, 1981, which is generally regarded as the birthday of the museum. We needed many things to succeed. First, this is a picture of our first board of directors formed in late 1981. In the front, going left to right, Greg Smith, Harry Terpstra, Phil Lundy, Tom Wilkins, and Elmer Spencer. In the top row, left to right, are Patty Meyer, George Taylor, Dennis Norton, and Cindy Smith. All boards in the United States, I'm sure anywhere in the world, have similar challenges. There's something in the order of 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States alone. Every single one of them, I'm sure they're doing worthwhile projects, civic good, whatever, competing for people, time, money, energy. So we've got lots of competition across the board from lots of worthwhile organizations. Speaking of people and money, at the end of the first year, December of 81, 206 members, the checking account at about $4,300, which was a lot of money for buying an airplane. The first logo, designed by Harry Terpstra, so you might have seen that image around the community from time to time. We needed a name for the organization. Dennis had seen a Grumman AA-1 Yankee Clipper aircraft with a star on the wheel of Willow Run, and the Yankee Air Force name was pretty much on the spot. There was some consideration of an alliance with the Confederate, which is not a member of Air Force in Texas. We thought about it, turned it down, we wanted to maintain independent operations. We needed a building. Let's get a little bit of check here.
Do it old school?
Pardon?
Do it old school? You got it. Any lights?
All right, we'll go with the old-fashioned way. Thank you, Steve. So the first winter, December 1981. This building had been owned by the Lane County Road Commission. They donated hangar number 2041, which was the Ford Training School during World War II, which was on the airport's east side. This building was used to teach GIs how to service the B-24. All the training programs and materials would go on the fly. One estimate, about 30,000 guys that would be mechanics and flight engineers who went through this program. Dennis asked the road commission for a building, thinking they might, maybe, they were feeling generous, give us a smaller building. He said, no, you got it. Museum personnel quickly went to work with lots of enthusiasm, camaraderie, and teamwork that's carried through to today. In the early days, it was a dog room, hot dogs made in a coffee pot. Nutritional value of these hot dogs, unknown. Okay, next slide. Hangar was in rough shape. Thousands of hours of work, virtually everything needed replacement and repair. Ice needed to be chipped off the floor. It was totally unheated. At least somebody came down with frostbite. I had failure more than that. The rationale for the road commission to get away became quickly obvious. There was a hangar committee that was held by GM's Nevermag personnel, transmission people that oversaw the rehab. That led up to this day, May 1982, 4.5 months after occupancy, with an F4 fan flyover from Celebrator. The vibration caused paint chips to fall off the ceiling. This B-25 was flown by a local Levine, a local aviation club. We also bought this aircraft and became our Yankee Warrior flyable B-25 and assorted local dignitaries on hand. Under, I think it's, yes, there you go. No, it's not working. It seems like it's working. Don't go too far though. Right now, here. Here's an aerial view of the museum on dedication day, what we purchased. Our first aircraft that we actually have is an RF-84K Thunder Flash. This was found on a park in Belleville, Michigan, which is a town adjacent to the museum. It was owned by the Air Force, towed it over, we lobbied the city council, said sure, you have it, painted it up, and then the Air Force found out, well, it's geez, kind of like our RF-84K back, so down at 80, now have a different RF-84 on display. B-24 search began on Earth, because remember what we originally wanted to do was, think about the history of B-24s. To the best of our knowledge, there are only 4 Willow Run built B-24s left in the world. This one that's seen here is in the Canadian Museum, and I think we've reached out to the folks up in Ottawa, and the transaction has not yet happened. We had an early opportunity to buy a non-Willow Run B-24, which was England and Paris. We didn't have the money, which was $250,000 to buy this aircraft. We didn't have the expertise, we didn't have the tooling to make this work. It's on a guy named Lee Pepke, again on the far right of this picture. He flew out to England, take a look-see, and said, forget it, just beyond us. And this is like 1982 or so. The Collins Foundation, which is a big aviation commemorative group in Massachusetts, much deeper pockets. They bought the parts, had the stuff transported here to the U.S. First, they built it as a SAC display, and they said, the hell with that, we're going to make this bad boy fly, and that's exactly what they did. It's been out to the museum at a Thunder Over Michigan air show, so we're close, but what are you going to do? Pepke, by the way, key figure in museum history. He co-founded the Detroit Institute of Aeronautics along with Norm Ellison. Norm's been key for the museum for years. Pepke went on a 1967 Amelia Earhart commemorative flight. The pilot was one of the picture in the far left hand quote, when the crewman was the guy in the middle, Bill Payne, along with Liddy. They used a Lockheed Electric. They started Willow Run, flew down to Oakland, where Earhart's flight began. They successfully navigated around the world. DIA became the Maya College of Technology. Museums enjoyed a long, beneficial relationship with Maya that's lasted for a decade. Some photos from the early days. This is from the Willow Run Air Show in 1982, something like at 2 in the morning. The William Eagles aircraft parked for the next day's air show. Inside the original hangar, you can see in the bottom left is the F-105 Thunder Chief. That particular Thunder Chief flew the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds. One of our earliest acquisitions, an F-101 Voodoo. The Air Force Museum donated, loaned it to us. I'm not that familiar with the exact terms of this transaction, some various military sources. This was on display in 1983 at the Air Force Museum. It took about 2.5 months to disassemble it. There was lots of photos and it took a lot of work. They had 2.5 months to prep for the actual move. This photos in October of '83. Very difficult time removing the wings. There was lots of corrosion. They had to load up the engines, by the truck into the fuselage. Very long weekend, and rain poured, it sounds like, most of that weekend for a lot of people to get this aircraft out there. We had all sorts of displays and artifacts upstairs, and a series of display areas up on the second floor. Really a priceless collection of equipment, artwork, and uniforms. It had a samurai sword. One way or the other didn't survive the 2004 fire that I mentioned. This was one of our earliest members. It's a man named Jack Spanich. He was on the board. He was slated to become a vice president of the museum. He owned an A1 Skyraider. Actually, he owned several at different times. This is one of the Skyraiders. He and his wife, Mary Ann, died in a 1984 crash flying home from the Virginia Air Show. An obvious tragedy for his family and a real loss to the museum as well. In the early days, we had many aviation legends come to the museum. The man in the straw hat there is Bob Hoover. His name's not that well known, maybe like, say, Yeager is, but he's one of the greatest aviators we've had in U.S. aviation history, both in military and civilian roles. Just as one example, he was shot down off the French coast in 1944, taken prisoner by the Germans. He escaped from his POW camp after 16 months, sold a German Fokker Wolf 190, flew to Holland in safety. This is just an amazing career this guy had. So once we begin acquiring aircraft, restoration then emerged as an ongoing priority. Our executive director, Kevin Walsh, posed a great question. What do you restore a 50-year-old aircraft to? It's likely many different paint schemes, configurations over time. All iterations are part of the aircraft story. The right answer is not always obvious. What is obvious is that it's painstaking work over years with many different skills required: paint, woodworking, electrical, metalworking, welding, and much more. We, and I say we, I'm not part of the restoration team, so I'm using the we broadly, has done some amazing work. What you see here is wing work in a TB-3 glider, which is a World War II trainer. Of course, aircraft just didn't appear. We searched worldwide for a B-24 using aircraft brokers. We had some numbers of leads, like a sighting in Bolivia, just didn't work out. We also searched for C-47s, which was a military version of the DC-3. At least to me, the DC-3 is probably the best known, most important aircraft in aviation history. And we found some that were in craters, some that had crashed, some that had been confiscated drug runners, and a number of other assorted problems showed in the lineup. This aircraft became Yankee Doodle Dandy, which was our first flyable aircraft, built in 1945, did not see combat in World War II, although a lot of C-47s did. We obtained it in 1982. Our C-47 was used by the Environmental Research Institute of Michigan for infrared research, and seen here in the original hangar. Airum's original asking price was $120,000, totally out of reach for the museum at that time. So we negotiated the price down to $30,000, and of course, truth be told, if we gave them a check for $30,000, we would bounce 10 feet in the air. So we worked it out with them, $10,000 down, remaining $20,000 over time. Arum donated all sorts of equipment, extra engine, cylinders, instruments, parts, probably worth more than what we paid for the aircraft altogether. 18 months worth of restoration work, the two lead guys were Fred Lockwood and Ron Haviland. Won the Best Transport Award at the Oshkosh Air Show in 1985. It was used in the HBO movie, 1991 HBO movie Citizen Cone. It was repainted in 2018, as you can see here. Now it's in the first Air Commando group finished from the China Burma India Theater. Its new name is Hairless Joe, after a little avatar cartoon character that C-47 pilot and the last surviving Doolittle Raider, Dick Cole, supposedly resembled. Cole is another one of our country's greatest aviators. He's been in several different museum events. Like I say, he's the last of the Doolittle Raiders. I think he just turned 103 in September. So our flagship, B-17, we've now named it Yankee Lady. Built in 1945. Saw service in the Coast Guard and Air Sea Rescues. No World War II combat service for the Lady. It did fly in the 1969 movie Tora 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 about Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. Museum acquired it in 1986 for $250,000. 9 people took out second mortgage on their home to guarantee the loan, which is transactions not for the faint-hearted. It's flown up from Arizona with a special ferry license. This last pre-Yankee flight was a top sprayer, which is the livery you've seen here. Flight crew, the far left is Dick Bodycomb, who just passed away last month. Bodycomb's from Michigan Aviation Hall of Fame, very distinguished aviation record, tremendous guy. Also Bill Wall, the other guy in the flight suit. And far right, over here, guy in the white jacket, is a fellow named Joe Slavic. He has substantial financial contribution to the B-17's purchase. He flew 35 missions for the 381st Bomb Group in the 8th Air Force. The lady's liveries in his honor. The presentation itself, to describe this restoration project, some examples. 26 rolls of microphone prints were obtained from the Smithsonian to do the job. 9 years worth of work. The preliminary estimate was 5 to 6 years worth of work. Reconfigured a World War II design. Coast Guard civilian operators made many changes at Lee and Guam. Electrical work was very involved in detail. Studied 38 reels of 35mm film from Boeing drawings. All electrical components, including 18,000 feet worth of wiring, were removed, tested, and replaced and repaired as necessary. Two of our volunteers, Norm Ellison and Vera Vance, took various tourist homes, such as the Chin Turret. So a somewhat non-traditional work-at-home project for those of you in corporate America who work at home with computers and turrets. About 300 people were involved, and I saw one estimate was about $1 million worth of donated labor to get the B-17 going. You participate in the B-17 co-op that trades parts. It can be hard to come by. Likely to find this stuff on Amazon or eBay. Norm, again, has been a key part of this group. Absolutely the go-to guy in the B-17 world. All that work and effort led to a pivotal day in museum history, which was July 13th, 1995, when the Yankee Air Museum into the air. This picture, I don't believe, is from that day, but I couldn't find one from its first flight. This is what it looks like today. It's just fabulous. The Yankee Lady note card, which you can see right back here, not from any known aircraft that we know of, it's just representative of the era. Many corporate sponsors provide assistance. There's one example, Jack Roush, who's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Roush industry is very heavily involved. So the flyable B-25, B-25D, built in 1943 at North American Kansas City plant, only 2 flyable D models in the world. So when 8 missions from Corsica, which was an island off of Italy during World War II, same bomb group as Bombardier Joseph Heller, who went on to write Catch-22 in the civilian world in the late 50s, early 60s. This aircraft saw service in the Royal Canadian Air Force after World War II. Shown on this 1987 picture of the 3 of the Tuskegee Airmen. The gentleman on the far right, blue blazer, Alex Jefferson, pilot, educator, helping in Detroit's Tuskegee Airmen chapter located in Fort William, Detroit. We began restoration work in 2000, became flyable in 2003, and we named it Yankee Warrior. And here's the finished product here. It's a great looking aircraft. Of course, the planes just don't fly themselves, you need mechanics on there. So here's a shot of B-25 engine working away. FAA requirements and AMP license, which stands for Airframe Power Plant. This type of work. Very long list of required skills like hydraulics, pneumatics, ground operations, instrumentation. Endless service, maintenance, and inspection, especially in winter or non-flying season. To say the obvious, safety comes first. Ramp crew. My time in the museum, I introduced the term ramp crew. Our past president, Harry Churchfield, second guy on the left here, heads up the ramp crew. It's a lot of fun and it's a whole lot of hard work too. To ensure passenger and visitor safety, useful skills include commercial ground operations, piloting experience. It's a long, exhausting day, something very hot weather all day, you're having to pee all day, constantly ground operating aircraft, which is loud and intimidating. Essentially, at least folks who are first responders in case of an emergency. Naturally needed pilots. The 4 people here, obviously, the 2 adults. We have Tony Delaney, Buttock Lowley. Tony's a retired Marine infantry officer and flies our C-47. Delaney's the first officer of the Southwest Airlines and she flies the B-25. Has to be one of the very few husband and wife teams anywhere in the world where flying restored war crews. I got be shocked if anybody else would. But anyhow, the museum grows in the 80s and 90s, and then disaster strikes. As on October 9th, 2004, the fire began late in the afternoon. It started on the 2nd floor. Heard odds and ends of rumors as to what caused it, but nobody knows for sure. The building was a total loss. As to the artifacts and aircraft inside the hangar, could have been much worse though. Nobody seriously hurt. I mean, some people suffered smoke inhalation, but nobody seriously hurt from it. The aircraft stored outside were not damaged. The wind direction was away from the fuel farm, so we obviously could have a real disaster in our hands. Volunteers on hand that afternoon, in some ways their own personal safety, pushed and towed out the B-17 and the C-47. But those were destroyed. It seems to me the museum was flat out of business for them. Barrett Vance had worked in the B-17 that day, and he left a tow bar on the front wheel. A huge help for towing it out of the hangar on an emergency basis. Our financial and computer records were back off-site, so that helps speed recovery. This was the day after. So we have people there on site that night looking at the wreckage. What on earth they have been thinking? And literally, thousands. We couldn't count them. We couldn't count that high. All those hours gone up in smoke. The word goes out. Let's meet the next day and see what we're going to do. More than the easiest thing in the world to call it quits, right? Lost the building, terrible. They meant what was the liability at the time, which we didn't know in 2004. And it was a decisive agreement to rebuild. And the 10th, the next day, the B-25 had already been scheduled to flew overhead and took this picture. And there may have been a few tears shed by those on the ground that day. I at Willow Run Airport extremely helpful in getting us back up and running. At a press conference the week after the fire, we were already developing recovery plans, donations were coming in from around the world to work at Christmas. We're spread the aviation community. It's one of the aircraft that lost an OB-10 Bronco, an OB-10 Bronco Association in the world. While the loss of so much irreplaceable history of the museum is heartbreaking, we know it's not as simple as game over. The volunteers at each of the museums, such as the Yankee Air Force Bomber, are not easily deterred by adversity. We look forward to the Yankee Air Museum building with an even bigger and better facility and collection, precisely what's happening. So we had a nomadic existence for a few years. This is the inside of Hangar 2. It's a World War II structure, since it was torn down. Used to house what was left. We really had no choice for guests in this time period. Picture shows a MiG from 2007 and it was thunder being warehoused here. Ultimately, the museum bought a mine facility on the east side of Willow Run. And we moved in there October 2010, 6 years to the day after the fire. Wasn't much on hand. I stopped by in 2011, and my first thought was, these guys are out of business in 6 months. There's just nothing there. What are they going to do? Where's the money going to come from? I'm happy to say I was 100% wrong. Shows our Huey helicopter being moved in. Lots of manual labor involved in this particular task. Continually adding all sorts of aircraft and exhibits. We have about 28,000 square feet of gallery space now and flat out of capacity. Rebuild included the house. This was built in 1938 for use by the Henry Ford Academy Educational System. It's a Willow Run schoolhouse, had a number of uses. It's a training building, officers club, later as a private residence. Charles Lindbergh stayed here. Over time, the building became abandoned and dilapidated and home to a few critters, and was donated to the museum. It's moved on campus about 3.5 miles to the east side of the Willow Run, so it's in front, essentially, on the north side of our current building. Number of construction of local tradespeople, some volunteer and some paid basis, led the renovation efforts, along with financial support from the David and Andrea Robertson family. Our archivist, Levine, and her team have a treasure trove of aviation and military information. Someday I hope we can open it up to the public. Because it's not open to the public now, but it'd be nice to do it. We've got a ton of stuff. Organization evolved over time. We've always relied on volunteers, with virtually no paid staff to speak of. When we grew larger, we formed an aerospace foundation in 2001 to coordinate fundraising efforts, doing business as the Yankee Air Museum Foundation. Ray Hunter was our first executive director. He's now chairman of the museum. Randy Hahn was an executive director for a while. He's now on the board. And Kevin Walsh was our named executive director in 2012. We've migrated to a name board where we have members with specific areas of expertise providing strategic direction. The Yankee Air Force name was spread to the retired in the 80s and 90s, and we're now known as the Yankee Air Museum. We considered several long-term alternatives. My building that we're in is always seen as temporary. We bought the last 144,000 square foot of the Willow Run Bomber Plant in 2014 from GM's real estate disposal team. We need to say the Willow Run Bomber Plant fundraising campaign to renovate our future home. I've seen all sorts of different numbers. Be assured it's a costly proposition. So what do we have today? Come in for a tour some Saturday when I'm working. There's plenty of many very excellent docents Tuesday through Sunday as well. But we'll give you a strip around, and here's just a few examples of some of our aircraft. This is a Cessna Skymaster in the civilian world. It's repurposed by the Air Force, primarily for forward air control work in Vietnam, is renamed the O2. Our particular aircraft served in the 20th Tactical Air Support Squadron in Da Nang, damaged by shrapnel the same day the Tet Offensive began in January '68. We've heard rumor and conjecture, we can't prove it, that our aircraft also saw service with Air America, which was the CIA's air arm in Vietnam. Can't prove it, but it's an interesting story, but word proven. Used primarily for forward air control work, very high piloting skills, very dangerous. We're flying low and slow over North Vietnamese territory, guiding our aircraft towards the enemy. Our O2 was found abandoned at Metro in 2013. It was a 3-hour tow job, beginning at about 4 in the morning to haul it over from Metro to Willow Run. So the story in the mid-60s, the military had set up, there was civilian transport of O2s to Vietnam, and the military took delivery. And given the timing for that, I can't prove it, but I think our O2 made this trip. A now retired Air Force officer, Colonel Wood, provided this account. Speaking to the civilian ferry pilots, he said, some were pretty good. The rest were the most god-awful collection of alcoholics he ever saw, the absolute dregs of the flying profession. O2, they flew the O2s from Cessna plant Wichita to Hamilton Air Force Base in California. Then they took out all the seats and they stuffed it with extra gas and oil tanks for the flight over, so they're way over maximum takeoff weight. After California, it's very, come out to the museum, it is a tiny aircraft. Flew to Hawaii, Midway, Wake, Guam, the Philippines, and then on into Tennis and other air base. The California-Hawaii leg was about 13 hours. O2s carried fuel for about 14 and a half hours worth of flight, so a pretty narrow margin of error given the primitive navigational equipment these guys had. For all this, amazingly the losses were among the civilian pilots. Air Force ultimately took over the process, no doubt for the best. We have an F-4 Phantom. It's on loan from the Air Force Museum. These were ubiquitous in Vietnam. Air Force used them, the Navy used them, the Marines used them. Our aircraft saw service in Da Nang in 1967 with the 366 Tactical Fighter Wing of Gunfighters. One of our aircraft pilots was a guy named Steve Ritchie, who was the only Air Force pilot ace in Vietnam with 5 enemy planes shot down. He signed the nose weir. Visitors can get a close-up to the tail hook used for carrier landings. Start thinking about landing 30,000 pounds of aircraft at 160 knots in a bucking carrier to get a little bit of appreciation for flying skills required. Huey helicopter, we have. There were about 7,000 crew we saw service in the war, about 3,300 were lost to the aviation mechanical malfunction, very high risk proposition. It's used for everything. Troop transport, supplies, reconnaissance, medical evacuation, saving countless lives. Our Huey saw service in Vietnam, was shot down, written off as lost, and was rebuilt and flew again. Team member Jerry Toller flew the Huey at Yankee, which was the first major U.S. Army engagement against the regulars in November '65. Yankee was featured in the book that movie, with soldiers and Huey's liveries and Representative Toller's helicopter in the war. A lot of our visitors flew on Huey's during Vietnam. Guests have shared many stories, at least verbatim from the daily dose as well. You can be assured that Vietnam War lives on with us. One man noted his local business employed 4 guys who had been pretty gone. His exact words were, every single one of them got education. And in that, these were kids not long out of high school, and they should have been thinking about their jobs, from school, their car, their girlfriend, not what they saw during the war. More than one of these guys were teared up, thinking back to the war, what they experienced, what they saw, and what they lost. This is our newest acquisition, one of our newest acquisitions, Douglas Dauntless. This particular aircraft saw combat in World War II, for the invasion of North Africa in 1942 and then anti-submarine controls in the Atlantic. Rotates back to the United States. And installs on a carrier takeoff exercise off of Chicago in 1943. And this off a steamer that was retrofitted with a carrier deck. Pilot survives. Dauntless is saying was run over by the carrier, and you can see the cockpit demolished. So it was fished out of the lake in 1994, went to the Naval Museum in Pensacola. We obtained it in 2018. Display areas under construction will be displayed upside down, just like the front on the lake floor. A B-52. Dennis Norton had originally been offered a B-52B by the Air Force. His initial thought, we're going to do this. That aircraft was not flyable and it was simply not feasible to disassemble and transport it up from Dayton to Atlanta. An empty B-52 weighs about 175,000 pounds and start rating into the parts. Just no way. The Air Force did provide a flyable B-52Ds, number 677, which you can see in the nose. This last flight was in October of '83 when it arrived here and has been moved since. Flew about 600 missions to Vietnam. There's urban legend around that a SAM missile struck it when we didn't explode. And from what we can tell, there's absolutely no truth to that story at all, which again is unfortunate. It's another great story to share, it just never happened. Aircraft body deteriorated over time. Museum personnel, UNIPIL association personnel, and these were guys that were serving in the time military bases during Vietnam, and Maya putting the work. 2 of our volunteers, Joe Provost and Nick Consiglio, both worked in 67 and then when the Air Force in Thailand the war They're now volunteering at the museum, they're still working on it, so these two guys have absolutely come full circle. This is a PB4 wide privateer, Navy derivative of B-24. Crashed in British Columbia in 1975, one functioning engine on landing, slides through a perimeter fence, ends up offshore in the ocean. The crew was able to get out, swim to shore, and the pilot was fired because that's up the landing. The aircraft severely damaged, suffered from saltwater corrosion, cut into pieces for shipping to Yankees that donated given in '87. Our restoration team is still working on it. Named John Marker. As you can see, he's got the enviable job here of flying out 160 verticals, non-air conditioned hangar. There's no room to work. There was a raccoon's nest in the wing at one point, so I left some leave behind the presents. John noted a few customers may have used the expedite bolt removal process. We're at SPAD 13. Took 40,000 hours to build a replica of the Allies' best World War I fighter. It's our only replica that we have. The rest are genuine aircraft. All work parts were built at the Yankee Air Museum. We have the blueprints for the French manufactured and translated into English. We dropped an engine into it, covered the wings with fabric, and gassed it up. It's close to being flyable. FAA certification would have been a challenge, plus the risk of destroying 40,000 hours worth of work. Not to mention filming a guy flying the plane. So, in the right calls, the stack display. First day of work in the SPAD, finished product right. We have many outstanding speakers at the museum, such as Gail Burgess. This guy named Green Carter speaking in 2013. And Randy Hopkins was on our board director. I know. Burgess flew a Lockheed P-38 Lightning in the Pacific during World War II. He knew and flew with Dick Wong, our top World War II ace. Wong shot down 40 Japanese planes and was awarded a Medal of Honor by Douglas, personally awarded by Douglas MacArthur. He also flew with Charles Lindbergh. And Lindbergh flew as a civilian, which is absolutely positively against Army Air Force regulations, but he did it, and Lindbergh shot down with Japanese aircraft. Burgess returned home with a civilian career, and many years he served as a Yankee volunteer. Another volunteer is Charles Kettles. Medal of Honor winner, awarded by President Obama in 2016, 49 years after action in May of '67. Kettles was at a place called Songcroft Cow, continually bringing in reinforcements and back-wing casualties, all under heavy enemy fire with the damaged air helicopter. Exhausting day of flying. We had word that 8 guys left that in the fire base that we weren't aware of. Kettles returns into without escort, 8-minute boarding, motor goes off, blows out both windshields, damages the main rotor and tail, and injures some of the men on the aircraft. Kettles improvises a modified running takeoff for his overloaded Huey, returning the 8 men plus his crew to the base. Really received a Distinguished Service Cross. The local historian named Bill Colano, which was the Ann Arbor Vietnam Vets chapter, read what happened and got this man deserves a Medal of Honor. Through the chain of command, they waived the standard 5-year eligibility requirement for the medal, which was approved. Kettles spoke here at the museum in 2017. He was utterly impressed with himself and what he did. As far as he was concerned, it's just another day at the office. One of the most inspirational people I ever heard speak. Sorry to report he passed away last month as well. So a real loss. Another inspirational speaker is Paul Levine, and here on the left, he also spoke at the 2017 museum. Our 84C, which is the aircraft on the right, is finished in his honor. You might be able to read his name under the canopy. Flew 97 missions over Vietnam. Shot down 6 years as a POW, brutally abused by his North Vietnamese captors. He spoke about how he kept his head on straight and his skull full. He said his faith, after confident suicide, he had a religious epiphany and said, I'm going to go there, and we'll stay the course. He had self-discipline, enormous amount of courtesy of the Naval Academy and all the nonsense he had to put up with there, and a positive attitude. Somebody else has a worse than me, although you have to think there too many people who make that statement, whoever it was. There's a quote from Galani, he said, no such thing as a bad day, you have a doorknob on the inside of the door. And that's off the wall in my queue in my office, in my day job. It's a good reminder of how easy life is here in America. Oops. We also have a wide range of events. This is Bomber Bucket, which goes back to 1995. We ended have the choice between painting or polishing the B-17 to its natural metal finish. Decided to polish it. Took 5 volunteers, 18 months because of all the observation on it. Becomes an annual event. And my first volunteer event, and the first time inside of B-17 was at the 2012 Bomber Polishing Pro CO, which is what you see here. It absolutely seizes your imagination getting in this aircraft and thinking about what the air crews did in World War II flying aircraft like this. It's just unbelievable. And it's a big aircraft to look at from the outside. We get in there and load it up with 10 guys, and bombs, and ammo, and machine guns, sardine cans, and bombs. Also have a series of events. We're always looking to get younger people involved. This is a team event from 2014. The acronym TEAM stands for Technology, Engineering, Aviation, Aerospace, and Mathematics. For girls 7 to 13 years old to encourage careers in these fields. Some of these girls got to go for a plane ride, and maybe we plan to see for a future career in aviation or technology. Another launch tradition is our volunteer dinner. It's a 2018 photo. Norm Allison's on the left. As I've mentioned, Norm's made many contributions to the museum, aviation in general, and the B-17 world in particular. Tremendous guy. And a great sport coach, Kevin Walsh, our executive director. A very challenging and demanding job, constant worries, and he's always high energy, positive, a real force for good here at the museum. I don't know how the guy sleeps because it's always, many things can go wrong at a moment's notice. We also put on an air show every year. It's called Thunder over Michigan. Thunder Names use began in 2003. The original organization for this goes back to Mike Luther, who was an 18-year-old kid back in 1999. Organized the 1999 Mustang Roundup and Symposium. And the thought was to have a discussion panel with some aircraft as backdrop. That first symposium, we had Robert Morgan, who was a pilot of the Memphis Bell B-17, Luther Rawl, who was a Luftwaffe pilot in World War II, and Buddy Anderson, who was a World War II Triple Ace. Weather was poor, there's only 2 Mustangs to arrive, and from that modest beginning, now it's one of the leading air shows in the country. With 700 volunteers worth the event every year. Going to be its own presentation to talk about some of the highlights. 2005, we set the world record for the most flyable B-17s in one location, which was 8. This is the year after the fire when it's not obvious we can not have any sort of air show at all. Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds appear from time to time, including 2017 for the Angels and 2018 for the Thunderbirds. To state the obvious, this is a high-risk profession. There have been any number of fatalities among these demonstration teams. You'd have to think perfection is the only acceptable standard both for the pilots and for the ground crews. First time you see one of these performances live, you just shake your head, how do they do this? We've had many other outstanding and unique aircraft over the years at Thunder. Just one example, in 2017, this P-40 was flown into Thunder. It's the only flyable aircraft in the world, at least that anybody knows of. It was at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. It was in a maintenance hangar. It didn't see any combat, which was good because it probably would have been shot down. Crashed in 1942 in Hawaii. Ultimately recovered off a mountain and restored by the Collins Foundation. We also have the tribute Rosies. The backdrop is one of the few flyable B-24s in the world. It's called Diamond Lil. It was the 25th B-24 off the line. And in front of the Lil are some of the tribute Rosies, and in front of them are some of the original Rosies, the 4 older women in the picture that were World War II defense workers. The leader of the tribute is a woman named Alison Beatty. She's back center. Many hours of work and dedication to keep the Rosie's memory alive. Her grandfather was a B-24 mechanic. Her dad worked at Hydromax, so Allison's participation is natural. Rosie the Riveter is now in the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame, signifying the contribution of female defense workers to the war effort, and some of my colleagues here from the museum are here. So thank you to them. We also support the Make-A-Wish Foundation. When the Angels or the Thunderbirds were in town, we supported an event with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Our volunteer, Melissa Frutos, was in the center, coordinates this efforts, where 10 families get to meet pilots and crews on the Friday before the air show. Very careful planning by a lot of people to minimize stress, as there's some very sick kids, so you can imagine the families are under absolute tremendous pressure. To me, if you can give us sick kids some hope, you've done a good deed, and our team's done good deeds over many, many years. So I hope you've seen that we've had a wide range of aircraft exhibits and stories in the museum. The short term, what we want to do is continue to keep things up to date with new displays and exhibits. The long term, we're going to be renamed the National Museum of Aviation Technology at Historic Willow Run. We're going to go into the bomber plant. We will be the next generation after Ford, Kaiser Frazer, and General Motors using the plant. Ray Hunter, our chairman, and the Michigan Aviation Hall of Fame inductee, senior at the plant's dedication in 2015. We began storing aircraft in this facility in 2015, some being towed in. First time aircraft have been in the plant since the 1950s, when Kaiser Frazer built a few C-119 flying boxcars. The future. Extensive work today has been completed, much more to do to turn the museum into a state-of-the-art museum. We've received much generous support from the community, local labor unions, and businesses. In 2018, we reconfigured the plant. There's a whole backstory behind it. We reconfigured it as we're going to lose the use of Hangar 1. We have to put our flyable aircraft in some of our future homes directly. Completion date for the remainder is fundraising dependent. The museum building will then become our largest artifact when we move in there. I always tell guests on a tour, if they stroke us a check for $1 million, they can have naming rights forever. Nobody's taken me up on it yet, but if I want to be the first, I'll be glad to stick around and talk. Wait a minute. Some days it seems like a long shot. Where on earth is money going to come from? But going back to 1981, museums overcome all sorts of obstacles, so why not now? Before I finish, I'd like to say a few words about Dennis Norton, our founder, driving force behind all this effort. Dennis would say that the work of thousands of people since '81 made the museum what it is today is right. There's no volunteers in the museum. But in my opinion, it would also be right to say, no Dennis, no museum at all. It's been at it since day one, never mind raising the family, looking after his business interests and so forth. Leads to Save the Bomber Plant campaign. Dennis continues to remind us all of the importance of Detroit. The bomber plant is part of World War II role, Detroit's role in the marching of democracy was absolutely huge. His many contributions have been recognized with his 2018 induction to the Michigan Aviation Hall of Fame. This is an artist rendition of our future homes, all subject to change, but at least this is one view of it. I've scratched the surface of the story. I've been privileged to get to know some of the people the museum's history and tell you about today. About 54,000 volunteer hours were contributed in 2018 alone. And I often thought about why people donate limitless amounts of time, money, and effort to contribute these aircraft and their stories. John Marker, remember, he was a guy in the wind. Told me his father was a gunner on B-24s during the war, and he says, we try every week to preserve our heritage that our fathers went through in the war. The real bonus of all the great people you've been with around. It sounds just about right to me. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
At one time, I heard that the Air Museum in Kalamazoo might come to give some ideas. Was there anything to that?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm there 2 or 3 days a month with unpaid volunteers. I'm probably any sort of inside decision maker. My sense of it is the people out in Kalamazoo, which is a first-rate facility, they've got a lot of support from people on the west side of Michigan, so as far as I know, they're going to be independent.
I'll change the question. Were you done answering the question?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Oh, what was wrong with the name Yankee Air Museum?
I'm sorry, say again?
What was wrong with the
You mean
name
a naming convention?
Yankee Air Museum? It's not politically incorrect, so I'm kind of at a loss as to why they wanted to change it.
I don't know. Honestly, God, I'm not part of that decision. By the time we reopen, it may be revisited, but I don't know. I work in marketing in my day job. We build up a lot of brand equity in the Yankee Air Museum name, so you can make a plausible case to keep it. But not being part of the team that came up with the new name.
So you don't, being in marketing, you know where my question comes from.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely, it's a good point. Sir.
Are the 2 new hangar bays being built within the,
Yes.
instead of in addition to?
Yep.
They'll be within, inside.
To your point, this is more or less 144,000 square feet. The original plan was to have this use at Hangar 1 for some periods down in the future. We have all our aircraft there. Now, Wayne County Airport Authority said, not so fast, guys. We're floating, whatever they were doing with it, they want us out. So to repurpose it, I think the fastest path to success is to fill that out And you gotta have some sort of partition, because you're gonna have gas, oil, and hydraulics, the flyable aircraft, and the fire suppression. So I don't know. So we're gonna lose some of the floor space, so I assume some of the aircraft are gonna get disposed, stored outside, or 20 years from now, we build some new hangar. There's plans since I've been there in 2015, plans have changed. They continue to change, and I assume they'll change before we open up again.
The last I heard was that utilities were brought into the
Yep.
hangar. What's the latest in terms of refurbishing?
There's both heaven and earth on getting sewage, plumbing, electrical, water. I don't know all the details, I should, study up ahead of our next presentation, but it's a lot of work. Well, I remember Dennis saying, to give it an update early last year, what you find is there's 70 years worth of companies there. I mean, Ford, Kaiser, Fraser, Tina, stuff got torn up, so if you dig in, and there's a pipe there that's not supposed to be there, so what the hell is this? And then you're expecting to find something, and it's not there, you don't know downstream what the effect's gonna be. So the construction, I think we fair to say, has had a lot of challenges. But they've made a lot of progress, but it's cash intensive. And this is a new hearing, but with that, reconfiguring this isn't cheap. Any other questions? Well, we'd let us sign and sell your book if you want after the show. $20 including tax, on your way. Well, thanks for your time. I hope you got something out of it. Appreciate it.